Imagine Christmas Eve in 1835.
No twinkling lights.
Yeah, no twinkling lights on every house.
No mountains of presents.
And instead of those mountains of presents under a big towering Christmas tree,
Think about a simpler time.
a time where kids might get an actual stocking as a gift
And where the Vice President of the United States is
Uh,
playing hide and seek with kids.
at a White House party.
Yeah.
So tonight we're diving into that world.
We are.
Specifically, the story of how President Andrew Jackson celebrated Christmas.
With his family and the community.
And we're using the History That Doesn't Suck podcast for this deep dive.
Their Christmas Eve special.
I think you'll be surprised by what we learn about Old Hickory.
The war hero.
Yeah,
The strong-willed president.
he's often portrayed as this tough and uncompromising figure.
Right.
But this story shows us a softer side to him.
Especially his love for children.
It's interesting how those two things could exist together.
It is.
This powerful leader,
Yeah.
known for his grit and determination,
Right.
also has this incredibly tender side.
Especially when it comes to kids.
Makes you wonder if his own experiences shaped those interactions.
Shaped how he was with children later in life.
Like he was trying to give them the childhood he never had
That's a great point.
because he was an orphan.
He was.
And the podcast actually describes Jackson taking 4 of the children living at the White House
Oh, yeah.
on a charitable visit
To the Washington City Orphan Asylum.
on Christmas Eve.
Hmm.
And this wasn't just a photo op.
No.
He was known for visiting the asylum pretty regularly.
Often bringing the kids with him.
It makes you think about his motivation.
It does.
Like it wasn't just about fulfilling a social obligation
There is a genuine desire there.
to connect with the children,
To bring them joy.
especially during Christmas.
Absolutely.
And then there's this exchange between Jackson and his great-nephew, John.
About Santa Claus.
We get a glimpse into Jackson's past.
He tells John about a boy who never got toys or presents.
Yeah.
Clearly drawing on his own experience as an orphan.
It's like even those who seem to have it all
Right.
may have faced hardships.
That we don't know anything about.
And John's response is pretty striking.
After hearing about the boy who never received any gifts,
Yeah.
he says he wants to share his toys with kids who are less fortunate.
And that brings Jackson to tears.
Yeah.
It's powerful.
Very
Shows the depth of his empathy.
And his longing for that kind of childhood kindness.
It really illustrates that true spirit of Christmas.
It does.
That selflessness and the desire to share.
With those in need.
And he doesn't just talk about it.
No.
He puts it into action.
Yeah, the podcast talks about him giving gifts to the orphans,
And at the asylum,
personally handing them out.
it's like he was giving them the Christmas he never had.
Trying to.
Yeah, and it really humanizes him.
Humanizes this intimidating figure,
Yeah, you see him not just as a president
but as a man.
who understands the value of compassion,
And giving back.
and that sets the stage for Christmas Eve
At the White House?
at their own home. It's fascinating to hear how different it was back then.
It is.
Instead of personalized stockings,
Uh-huh.
the kids just hung up their nanny stockings,
By the fireplace.
hoping Santa would fill them up.
Hoping.
Yeah, it's such a different image.
From our modern Christmases.
And then John insists on hanging a stocking for Uncle Jackson.
The president.
Yeah, the president of the United States.
Can you imagine his surprise?
The president's surprise
Yeah, he had never hung a stocking.
in almost 70 years.
It's incredible.
It speaks volumes about the love and admiration those kids had for him.
It does.
It really shows the warmth and affection in their family.
Even in the White House.
Even with all that formality.
That family feeling really runs through the whole celebration.
Oh yeah, the History That Doesn't Suck podcast really brings that to life.
It does.
I feel like you're right there.
You do.
So Christmas morning
Mariah's.
at the White House,
Oh,
you can picture the kids waking up,
eyes wide with excitement.
rushing to see if Santa filled those stockings.
And he didn't disappoint.
No, he did not.
Those stockings were overflowing with gifts.
They were.
And each one gives us a glimpse into what toys and treasures were like back then.
Yeah, like young Jackson got a toy gun
A saddle.
and a bridle.
It's almost like those gifts.
Foreshadowed his future.
Yeah, like a military career.
A little glimpse into the man he would become.
And then there's little John.
Yeah.
He got a drum.
And a hobby horse.
It really paints a picture of that time.
Simpler toys.
Yeah.
Encouraging imagination.
Active play.
So different from today. Technology.
Technology.
It makes you think about how much childhood itself has changed.
It really does.
And of course, the girls, they got dolls and tea sets.
Some things never change.
Right.
But what really stood out to me
Yeah.
was the gift from Vice President Martin Van Buren.
What did he give?
Mary Emily got a toy stove.
with a functioning alcohol burner.
I know.
Can you imagine?
Today.
Yeah, any parent would be horrified.
Mhm.
It would be a lawsuit waiting to happen.
A different era when it came to safety.
For sure.
The podcast even describes Mary Emily using the stove to make popcorn.
But popping popcorn.
And sometimes those hot kernels
Would it hit her face?
or her hands.
Leaks.
We've come a long way.
In terms of child safety.
For sure.
But even with all the differences,
Mm-hmm.
those core values of Christmas still shine through.
They do.
The generosity,
Warmly.
that spirit of giving.
Absolutely.
And what's fascinating about this
What is it?
is that we see these values.
And the highest office in the land.
You do.
Here's the president
Yeah.
embracing the joy and wonder of the season.
Despite that tough public image.
Right.
And the festivities don't stop there.
Don't say.
They hosted the first ever.
White House Children's Christmas Party.
Wow. Groundbreaking.
The podcast even shares the wording of the invitation.
Does it?
The children of President Jackson's family request you to join them on Christmas Day at 4 p.m. in a frolic in the East Room. I love that.
A frolic in the East Room.
Makes you think of kids laughing and playing games.
So carefree.
It is.
Hard to imagine that in the White House.
Hard to imagine.
Even during the holidays.
But according to the podcast, the East Room was decked out.
With cedar branches and flowers and
Uh-huh.
mistletoe.
But no Christmas tree.
Oh, that's right.
That tradition hadn't taken hold in America yet.
It's amazing how much traditions have evolved.
It really is.
But even without a tree,
Right.
they still created this really festive and joyful atmosphere.
They did.
The podcast describes kids playing games like hide and seek,
Uh-huh.
while the adults
I'll sip eggnog.
likely spiked with some rum or bourbon.
I'd imagine so.
I wonder what those conversations were like.
The president and the vice president just casually chatting,
Yeah.
enjoying the holidays.
And then there's that story about Vice President Van Buren
What about him?
playing with the kids.
Uh-huh.
And he even agreed to act like a turkey.
After losing a game, it just shows a different side to them.
Humanizes them.
Reminds us they were people too.
Yeah, able to let loose
And embrace that playful spirit
of the holiday.
of Christmas,
So after all the games,
right?
it was time for the main event.
The Christmas dinner.
What a feast it must have been.
The podcast describes the dining room.
Decked out,
Table overflowing with food.
and those unique decorations.
Reindeer figurines on top of a fishbowl of goldfish.
I know, such a feast for the eyes.
It really was.
And what about those fake snowballs?
Made out of cotton balls.
Starched cotton balls.
The starch actually created a snowfall effect,
Oh.
added to the magic.
It really did.
And Dolly Madison
The former First Lady.
compared it to a fairy procession.
From A Midsummer Night's Dream.
High praise.
How did President Jackson respond to that?
I'm curious.
He quoted a biblical passage about the importance of children.
That's fitting.
That's a nice way to end the story.
It really is.
What a story, huh?
It really makes you think about Christmas back then.
It does.
So different from today.
But in some ways,
Yeah.
the core of it is still the same.
Exactly. It's amazing how much has changed.
I know, over 150 years.
And yet some things stay the same.
So what can we learn from all this?
From the Jacksons' Christmas,
Yeah, what does it mean for us today?
I think it shows us that the Christmas spirit is powerful,
It is.
even with different traditions.
Yeah. Back then, they didn't even have Christmas trees yet.
That's right.
And no technology.
None.
But those core values,
Generosity.
family,
Togetherness.
they're all still there.
They were front and center.
It's nice to see that some things never change.
It is comforting.
It's easy to get caught up in all the craziness these days.
To commercialism.
The stress,
But this story reminds us
to focus on what matters.
what really matters.
Spending time with loved ones.
Giving back.
Appreciating the simple beauty of the season.
It's not about the stuff.
No.
It's about the people. It's about the connections.
And this story also challenges our perception of Andrew Jackson.
In what way?
We usually think of him as this tough and unyielding leader.
Old Hickory.
Right. But here we see a softer side.
A more human side.
A side we don't often see in history books.
It's a good reminder that everyone has a heart.
Everyone.
Even the most powerful figures.
They cherish those simple joys too.
They do.
And I think that's a really important lesson for today.
Especially now.
When the world feels so divided,
So chaotic.
it's good to remember that we're all human.
At the end of the day,
We all have those same basic needs.
for connection,
For love.
for belonging,
And Christmas can bring us together.
it can if we let it.
It's about finding those common threads
Those traditions that go beyond our differences.
And remind us of what's truly important.
Exactly, the spirit of Christmas.
With its generosity and kindness,
It's something we can all hold on to,
we can.
no matter who we are.
Or what we believe.
It's universal.
So as we wrap up our trip back to 1835,
Back to the Jacksons' Christmas.
what's the big takeaway here?
I think it's to remember the heart of Christmas.
It's not about the presents or the decorations.
It's about making memories,
Spreading joy.
cherishing the people we love,
It's about finding that inner child.
that sense of wonder.
Just like Andrew Jackson and his family did all those years ago.
And maybe
you?
you'll be inspired to start a new tradition,
Like what?
like playing hide and seek with the vice president.
I like it.
Happy holidays, everyone!